But today is finally priming day. We could finally get going on making this buffet look stunning. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tape off certain areas where I do not want the primer to get on. And I will show you exactly my whole setup. Get all my priming material ready, and I'm going to show you how I prime a piece.
So I have everything ready for priming. Now, whenever I prime, I make sure I do it all in one time, because the BINS shellac primer that I use, it's pretty much when I'm done with the roller, I just throw it out. It's not worth for me using so much denatured alcohol to try and get as much primer off the roller. However, these rollers, I've reused them numerous times when I'm painting, because the paint is water-based, it comes out really good, and I save my leftover and really used rollers for my BINS shellac, so I know that once I'm done with it, I got great usage out of the roller. I'll use the shellac, the primer, and just throw it out when I'm done. I also have a little brush for like the fine little small areas to get into, along with a little jar of denatured alcohol. Now, denatured alcohol will break away all the BINS shellac, and that's how your brush will become clean. So I have it right next to me right away, because once your brush gets dried up with the shellac on it, it's like you just have to throw it out. So I do have it on standby, so when I'm done painting, I can put it in there, wait until I need it again to get into the fine little areas. Sometimes I'll do it under here, because the roller won't really reach all the way up in the corner there. So I will have a little brush. I have my face mask. I use a face mask because the shellac is definitely stinky. I also have a little cup. I am a person that I do not like drips and yucky stuff in the rim of the cans. I like it to be nice and clean. So when I put the cap on or the lid, it's nice. It's not yucky. You can see how clean it is around the edge because nothing is in this groove. And how I do that is I go in and I take my cup and then I pour it into my painting tray. So that's how I'm able to use that. Some people will put foil. I've done foil before on the edge and then you pour it in, but for some reason with shellac and BINS, I want it to be easy, super clean, and because this is just, it just adheres to everything and it just gets gross, especially if you have it in your hair or your hands, and that's why I wear gloves as well. So I did shake this up beforehand, and I am going to stir it because the shellac will, I guess whatever it is, goes to the bottom and it gets yucky, and then the top separates and it's usually yellow on top. So what I do is I shake it up to kind of get the pigment of the white all incorporated, and then I will just do one last mix, break up any air bubbles that's in there, mix it really good. I'm rubbing the stick on the bottom of the can, and I do not feel any any of it separated like that, gravitated to the bottom of the can. It's not chunky at the bottom. Sometimes when I first start, I can scrape like this and pull it up, and it's like really chunky that you have to mix it. So it looks really good to me. Now I have all my areas set up. I have my backsplash right here. My frame of the furniture is all ready to go. I did put blue tape in certain areas that I do not want the foam roller to touch. I have my drawers here. Over on my workbench, I have the caddy, the cabinet doors right here. And what I have underneath is wooden blocks. And then over the wooden blocks, I have a towel, because I've learned my lesson, because I've used my blocks for so many times. They were actually my kids' blocks when they used to build. Well, you can see how there's paint and everything on here. Well, after I would paint, you have to flip your door over to paint the other side, and when I would flip it back over, I'd have all little remnants of the paint that was left here. It would stick. So just a little tip, I just put a little towel rag over it, and then I'll paint it, let it dry, flip it over, and this way I can paint the back of it, and then when I flip it back over, there won't be any paint from the blocks. So that's just another little tip. So I have everything ready. And once I start priming, I don't stop till it's done. So hopefully the kids inside, I'll let them know I'm going to be out here for a little while. If they need me, come out here, but please only if it's an emergency, because once I start priming, everything dries so fast that I don't want my roller to get nasty and harden, and I don't want my brush. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. What I am doing here is I am using a small brush and I am cutting in the corners. I am cutting in because the roller will not be able to get in tight in the corner. So I am using a small brush and cutting it in, and then once I'm done doing the small, harder parts, I will be using my roller.
Today is day 7 of me working on this beautiful buffet. I forgot to mention my previous videos, day 4, day 5, day 6, just to kind of give you an idea of how long it does take me to work on one piece of furniture. Yes, this is a very big piece that I took on for my first YouTube tutorial, but that's okay. I'm still learning and kind of figuring out the process that's going to work best for me, so all you viewers get the best possible instruction or just a tutorial of what I do. So today is day 7, and today what I'm going to be working on is I'm going to assess to see how well my BINS primer worked. Now, certain spots on my buffet I did scuff sand, and some were areas where I really wanted to get down to the raw wood because either the top coat that was previous on there, like it had a lot of moisture, and they call it like alligator feel. It's very bumpy, and I didn't want the paint to go on that. I want it to be as nice and as smooth as it can be. So there were some areas that I did go down to the raw wood. So when you go down to the raw wood, especially with like a piece that's like a mahogany piece, you are going to get so many red tannins. So if you were to use a water-based primer, those tannins coming through, the water draws it all out, and you will see sometimes dark red or lots of pink. With the BINS primer, it has a shellac base. So what that does, it goes on. Not only does it stop the barrier, like stop the smell if there's any smell in the wood, but it does put such a nice barrier of blocking the tannins that come out because it's not a water base, it's a shellac base, okay? So sometimes though, when you get down to the wood, they are even still going to draw out a little bit with the BINS, but that's okay, but because the BINS is stopping it as much as it can. That's why I let it dry for like a full day, because once you create such a good barrier with that BINS shellac, it will stop everything coming through. So when I put my second coat on, you will not see it. I've done that mistake plenty of times where I put the BINS shellac, I think it was like on a mahogany hutch, and I was just impatient. I put a coat on, waited 2 hours, put another coat on. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just a stubborn piece of wood. Waited another hour or so, put another coat on, still happening. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to stop for today, and I am just going to wait the next day and put it on, and guess what? It went on perfect, no bleed through coming through. So when you do a BINS shellac, just make sure, and you have some raw wood exposed on like a red piece of furniture or even cedar chest. That happens a lot with cedar chests too. Just give it a day to completely cure, create that bonding, and then when you put another layer of your BINS on, it should be really like 100 times better. I'm going to show you some areas where I do have some bleed through, and I know it's because I did sand down to the natural wood. So I'm going to turn the camera around. I'm going to show you.
So I know for a fact with this drawer, I did scuff sand a lot down to where I went down to the natural wood. And you can see this is more of like a browning of the tannins coming through. You could just tell it's a discoloration. So, and I got some paint flakes here. Like I think the primer was starting to dry on my tray a little bit, so I picked up some flakes, but that's okay. I always take a sanding block over it and I always smooth it out no matter what. And I'm gonna put another coat on this so it's not a big deal. So this will look perfect. But over here in certain areas, where was it? Oh, on the side, I think. You could see a lot of it coming through. You can see a lot of the tannins coming through. It's more of a brown. Also, my roller was getting a little dry, so it was, and I went over it a couple times, probably too many, and it lifted some of the primer up, but that's all right because I'm gonna put another second coat on this side anyway, and you will never even see it, but you can tell the discoloration right there. And let's see, I think on the doors, there was some too, because I really scuffed down. I had some Bondo I had to come finish and fix and sand down. So I did get down to the natural wood on those. And right here. So there are some areas that I am going to go over, but usually when I work on a piece like this, it's always very common. So I'm going to get going on that. You can see some here also, but it's not a problem because if I did a second coat right away, it would be way worse. So this is good. I'm happy with the way it's coming out. I'm going to finish doing my primer today, and then in a little while, I want to put some paint on. I put the second coat of primer on, and you can already tell it looks amazing. No bleed through, nothing. It looks great. By just giving that day of the primer to sit and cure and create such a blocking barrier, that's what you have to do when you get down to raw wood, especially with like a reddish color mahogany that it was. It'll come back through as like a pink. I had a really bad pink spot right over here. You can see it a little bit, so that might need one extra coat. And then right here, I really got down to all the raw, and this was truly, I think, like a solid piece of mahogany or something, because it's like the decorative trim, so it's a little different than the frame of the buffet. But if that's all I gotta do right there and right here, it's hard to see actually, but considering what it was, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit, and then I am going to start painting.